So what we're going to go through today is we wrote down 10 questions to ask every seller while you're doing the pre-qual or the pre-qualification process. So for Fernanda, I mean, we have a small crew today. I don't know if it's because we did it a little bit earlier in the day or what, but we're always happy to share. So Fernanda, this is for pre-qualifying sellers before a listing presentation, before you go out to their house. So Ronald, what we use is primarily, I'd say it's 85% the Mike Ferry pre-qual script. And then we sprinkle in some other questions that we've just, learned over the years, gotten from other coaches, just gotten out of experience. So let's jump into it. Nikki, do you want me to lead?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess it makes sense. Let's first take a step back real quick. And Ronald, I know, how long have you been in the business?
I've been about a year.
Awesome. And not to point you out or to call you out, I should say, are you going on, how many listing appointments would you say you're going on per month? And how good are you about making sure you pre-qual every time?
So that's what skill I'm trying improving. I've been so far about 3-4 listings appointment a month.
Good.
But just trying it right now, seeing what system is working best for me or not.
Good. Okay, cool. So let's see. So the pre-qualification process is super important for any appointment that you set with a seller, any listing appointment. I would say it's most similar to the process of, if we compare it to rentals or to buyer leads, if we simply just answer our phone from a phone call from a prospect, and they, what most agents do is the buyer says, hey, it's right now 3:00 on a Wednesday. Can you show me this property at 4:00? And a lot of times what we all do, or what we did when we were newer to the business, is just stop whatever we were doing and run out and go and meet them at a property. We're so excited to have a buyer or a client that we work with that we skip the whole pre-qual process just because, either A, we don't know better, or B, a lot of times we skip it because we don't want to find out that we don't actually have a real client here, right? We want to feel like we're busy, and we want to feel like we're going through the motions of working with clients and doing transactions. So, and I would say this is something I wish I learned much earlier in the process. You want to make sure that you do a very thorough pre-qual anytime you're about to meet with a client, whether it's a buyer, a renter, or in this case, a seller. So you want to make sure that you're making the best use of your time. And I know, again, as an agent who may be newer in the business, or even just 2 or 3 years in the business, you want to fill up your calendar with appointments, and you want to sometimes feel like you're not being too intrusive and saying, asking too many questions where you say, oh, well, I can find that out when I meet with the seller at their house. Nikki, work with me here. What are some of the reasons you think some other agents don't do a thorough pre-qual?
I think in some cases too, it may sound silly, but once you do get a prospect or someone that is telling you that they want to sell, you don't want to disqualify them either. Some questions are, may do that and may clarify some things for you or figure out the timing's not immediate or whatever the case is. So I think some people may be nervous to ask certain questions, but it's super important to have that understanding before you even go over to meet.
Yeah. I think also the other big thing that we should touch on here is that the definition of a lead, right? So if I'm an agent and I'm trying to sell 100 homes a year, right? 100 homes a year comes out to whatever that comes out to. Let's say 8 transactions, 8 homes a month, right? Divided by 12, 100 divided by 12 puts me somewhere around 8 or 9. So I don't really have time to spend talking or meeting with people who are not ready to make a real estate decision in the next 7 days, right? So my definition of a lead, if I'm trying to do 100 transactions, is going to be somebody who wants to buy or sell real estate in really the next 7 to 14 days. Now, if Nikki, you're trying to do 50 transactions in a year, your definition of a lead is going to be a little bit bigger, right? You might be willing to work with somebody who's doing something in the next 30 days, right?
Yeah.
So we all have different definitions. Not that mine is correct or that yours is correct. It's all about the time frame that you're willing to work within. If you're only trying to do 12 transactions this year, one a month, you might be more willing to work with somebody who doesn't need to do something for the next 2 or 3 months, right? Because if you're willing to go out there and meet with them, you don't necessarily need a deal today, where somebody who's trying to list 7 to 8 homes a month needs to find somebody who's looking to do something immediately, right? So I think that's a big component too. A lot of times when you're newer in the business and maybe your goal for this year is only 12 transactions, which is fine. You always have to start somewhere. I mean, that was my goal my first year. Your definition is going to be much different, which means your pre-qual is going to be much more lax, right?
Mhm.
You're okay calling somebody before the appointment and saying, hey, I'll come out and meet you tomorrow at 2. Does that still work for you? You might go out, meet with them, and then ask them a lot of the questions at their kitchen table. And then what happens is a lot of times you have to say, hey, I'm going to run the comparables, or I'm going to run some numbers and I'll get back to you. That's what a lot of agents, I would say, that's what most agents do incorrectly, in my opinion, in this business, is that they sort of treat the listing appointment or the buyer's appointment as like a 2-step process. Our goal and in this webinar today and within our team is to ask the buyer or the seller, the client, enough questions on the pre-qual, the initial phone call, that when we go and meet them in person, whether it's for buying a property or selling their current property, we can give them much more direction much earlier on, because we've asked all of the difficult questions already in advance, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Like, if you were to go to a doctor, would you prefer to have a doctor ask you some questions on the phone, and then when you come in, he says, all right, based on what you told me, I think this is the diagnosis, go take some medicine and you're all set? Or he's like, hey, come in and meet with me, and once you're in my office, I'll ask you the questions, and then I'll get back to you like within a week or so. You're like, no, I want to know now, right? So our goal is to do this thorough pre-qual, which can come off as an interrogation if it's not done correctly. Do a thorough pre-qual where it feels like it's just more of a sales conversation with the prospect, so that when you do go actually meet them in person, you could be that much more prepared and informed, right? So hopefully that's helpful. Ronald, since we have a small crew here today, any questions so far?
So far, no, everything good.
Fernanda, any questions?
Nope, I'm just listening.
Awesome. And again, these are some of, like, if you think about the pre-qual questions, I jokingly say within our team, these are some of the ways that we've gotten screwed if you don't ask these questions, right? Ronald, I know you've only been in the business, you said just about a year. I'll tell you, there's times where I've gone on appointments. I didn't ask the seller if they were planning to interview any other agents. And I'm super excited. I got like my best suit on. I got my tie on. And I go out to meet the seller. It's 2 hours before the appointment. I've told my whole family, my whole office, that I'm going out. I got this big appointment today. I'm super excited. And then 30 minutes before I go to drive to the house, I call them and I'm like, hey, just confirming our appointment for today at 2 p.m. And they're like, oh, it's Wednesday? Yeah, we signed an agreement with another agent on Monday. We totally forgot to tell you. And I'm like this like defeated like young kid who just got into the business, who was like, I don't understand. I was super excited about this appointment, right? So the goal is, if you ask all of these questions, you can really, really be not only be prepared for the appointment, but really drastically reduce the amount of surprises, right, that could come up. Like, they could hire another agent, they could meet with another agent, they could decide to rent the property instead of selling it. So you're going to pretty much ask them all of these questions so that you can really be understanding of what you're getting into. Cool. So let's jump into it. So we titled this, to be honest, 10 questions you need to ask every seller. It's around 10. I think there might be a few more, there might be a few less. Some of them have like sort of sub questions, but we're going to make sure you guys get a lot of value out of this. So first and foremost, I always think it's good to say, so you'll be talking to a prospect. Maybe we just role play real quick, Nikki. You'll pretend to be a seller, and I'll just call you. And we've sort of been exchanging some questions, and now I set the appointment. So Nikki, which is better for you, tomorrow at 2 or tomorrow at 4?
Let's do tomorrow at 4.
All right, great. I'll see you tomorrow at 4. Now, Nikki, before I come out, there are a number of questions I do need to ask you. Okay?
All right, that works.
Great. So Nikki, if what I say makes sense tomorrow, and of course you feel comfortable and confident that I can sell your home, would you say you're planning on listing your home with me when I come out tomorrow at 4?
I mean, John, a lot of the stuff that you said I've agreed with so far. We do want to see what you think about the house and everything, but if all goes well, then yeah, we do plan on moving forward.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So you haven't quite decided to hire me yet?
Not yet. Still want to
All
hear
right.
what you have to say, though.
Of course. All right, great. So I'm looking forward to meeting you tomorrow in person at 4 p.m. Now, Nikki, there are just a few quick questions I want to go through with you. You have a few more minutes for me now?
Yeah, this works. This
All
time.
right, great. So then we'd go into some more questions. But just to go back to that, we'll title that one the number one question you want to ask them. If you feel comfortable and confident with me, that I could sell your home, are you planning on listing your home with me when I come out tomorrow at 4? So this is a great intro question, because that is essentially like what we practice in our office when you're working with a buyer, saying to the buyer, hey, if you see your dream home tomorrow, is there anything stopping you from making an offer? Which is a nice way to future pace them, right? Like, hey, if everything goes well tomorrow, are you planning on working with me, right? It's the same thing as if you call a car dealership and they're, if you ask if the black models are still available, they say yes. And they say, hey, listen, if you really like what you see tomorrow, are you planning on moving forward and leasing a car? So what are some outcomes that could come from that question?
I think they
Well,
could just say yes.
real quick, I asked you, said, what did you say? You said, I still have to think about it a little bit, but
Yep.
everything sounds good. Let's see how it goes tomorrow.
Yeah.
Which is great. That leaves me feeling super positive. I'm like, all right,
Mhm.
if I impress this woman, if I knock her socks off tomorrow, she's probably going to give me, the listing, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's just say, let's say you give me, let's say you're considering meeting somebody else. You might tell me what?
John, we may be considering you, but we are meeting with a few other agents this week, so I can't give you an answer right now.
Okay, got it. So you've decided to interview some other agents as well.
Yes. Yep.
All right, great. And Nikki, who else are you meeting with? And we don't have to role play that just yet, but I can ask you who else you're meeting with, right?
Yeah.
So now I know I have competition. So this is just going to open up other doors so that I know what I'm up against. So that if she's kind enough to tell me who the other agents are, it's like, oh shit, she's meeting with this big dog. I know how to handle that one.
Mhm.
Or she might say, oh, I'm meeting this other agent that I've never even heard of, right? So I know how to handle that one. Or she might just say, this agent is a friend of mine or whatever. So and then you sort of know where your timing is too, right?
Yeah.
So if I know that you're meeting me tomorrow, but you're meeting with some other people on, let's say, Friday, Saturday, you may not want to make your decision until you meet with everybody,
Mhm.
right? So it helps you know like your order, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
even, that you either have to be really, really impressive tomorrow so that she feels like she doesn't even need to meet with the other people, or, come out of the gate. Like maybe, some other coaches may tell you, hey, you may want to move your appointment to the last one. You want to be the last one if you really feel like they have to meet with everybody. My suggestion
Yeah.
would be go first and be the best so that they don't have to meet with the other people.
Yeah. I was going to add just to that too, other than obviously seeing how they're reacting, but by just straight, asking them, if you feel comfortable and confident with everything I've said, do you plan on listing with me? Having that be so, even though it sounds super obvious, and kind of asking them point blank, will you list with me? Based off their reaction too, you can get a lot from that. So
Yeah.
they could be like, yep, yeah, of course. Why would I be having you coming over if I didn't want to list? Or no,
Right.
I'm not signing anything. Absolutely not. I thought you were just going to come over to look at my house. So
Yeah.
I think there's the two extremes of that too, of just getting a little bit more sense of how they react to that so that you can prepare too when you do meet with them.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You're right. Some people will be like, no, Nikki, you told me there was no obligation to this appointment.
Mhm.
You were just coming over to go through, the next steps with me. So no, I won't be signing something. We may not sign something for 2 months, right?
Mhm.
So then you sort of have to make a decision, like, am I going over there to sort of treat this as a preview or a meet and greet to nurture and plant some seeds to potentially work with them in the future? If your calendar's got a lot of blank space, as Grant Cardone says, if there's a lot of white space on your calendar, go there and
Mhm.
practice the listing presentation on them. The worst
Yeah.
thing that could happen is that you have somebody else in your database, right?
Mhm.
So that's one thing. And the other thing is they could be like you said, Nikki, like some people would be like, why would I have you over to my house if I wasn't planning on hiring you? And then it's a home run, right?
Yep.
If that's the person and you're pre-approving them, you're calling them to qualify them for today's what, Wednesday? If you're qualifying them for an appointment on Saturday, if that's the case, then I'd be like, Nikki, can I ask you a question? Do you have any other free space on your calendar where I can just meet you maybe later on today or tomorrow? Like if you think they're going to be a layup, you definitely want to get in there sooner so that another agent doesn't come into their path between today and tomorrow or today and Saturday.
For sure.
So we were saying that that's the first question, but that sort of led into, are you interviewing other agents as well? So that's a good, we'll keep that as the second question, right? Interviewing other agents.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So then we usually say, that is usually our next question. Are you planning to interview more than one agent for the job of selling your home? So that's what we'll call question 2 for every seller, right? Number 3. Well, actually, let's just, because Rano, I want to give you some special attention here, and Fernanda too. Any questions about asking if they're interviewing other agents? Sometimes that one could come across as like, some people are like, I could never ask that. That's like too intrusive. Any pushback? Any other follow-up questions on that?
No, I typically do ask it.
Good. Fernanda, any questions?
Oh, no questions. I was just going to say that,
Okay.
it's kind of like when we role play in the mornings with our buyer scripts and we say, are you committed to working with, another buyer's agent?
Right.
So just noticing that.
Right. Yes, that's great. That's a very, common, that's a similarity between the two scripts. So Rano, I'll give you another one too. Nikki, let's role play it. And why don't you say to me, why would you need that information?
Got
so
it.
Nikki, are you planning to interview more than one agent for the job of selling your home?
I mean, John, we're kind of thinking about it, but why is that important to you?
Oh, you know what, Nikki, great question. And can I share something with you?
Yeah.
What I found is that some sellers who are considering interviewing more than one agent, find it beneficial for me to provide them with some market statistics, right? So if you're okay with it, you can share the 2 names of the other 2 people you're considering meeting with. And what I can do is print what we sort of call an agent report card. It's everything that I've sold printed from the MLS, everything that they've sold printed from the MLS, and then maybe the third agent if there's a third person you're considering. And that way you can compare everybody apples to apples. Do you think that would be helpful for you?
Yeah, definitely. I'd
Great.
love to look at that.
Yeah, most sellers do find it really helpful because it's, it's hard. Everybody says they're number one, right?
Yes, that's true.
Right. But the stats don't lie, so I'd be happy to prepare that for you. So who are the 2 other people you're meeting with? And then you're good. You usually get it after that. Some people think that you're going to like call the agent. It's like, no, I would never call the agent. I'm just trying to figure out exactly who I'm stacked up against, right? Every professional sports team, before they go play a game on Sunday, they're scouting out their competition. They're learning who else is out there and how they stack up. So it's totally fair.
Yeah. And I think too, probably maybe to just add in onto that, especially being newer agents or maybe not having that large track record that some agents do have, you could kind of spin it in either way too, John, right? Like we've talked about, like with our team of, if it's a big office and you're a small office, how is the small office benefiting that seller better than the big office? Or in whatever the role reversal is there. So I think you could do it either way. So
and there's been times where I've gone up against a really big agent who sold 100 homes a year, and at that time I was only selling, let's say, 20 homes or 15 homes, and I'd be like, how could I possibly spin this to me looking better, right? Because once you ask that and they tell you, they expect you to be able to compare. So listen, and this might come across as aggressive to some people, but there's things you can do like, oh, well, the other agent you're considering, I noticed that they have 15 active listings right now. I'm still very busy. I have 5 active listings, but who do you think is going to give you more of their attention? someone with 15 active listings or someone with 5. So I have more time to specifically focus on the sale of your property. And not only that, but I noticed the other person that you're considering, they have 15 active listings, but the majority of their listings are in Bergen County, and your home is in Hudson County. All of what I do is in Hudson County. Who do you think knows the area a little bit better? Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or, I've jokingly said if it's a mega agent, I'm like, wait a second, they came out here? You're going to meet with them personally? Are you sure they didn't send somebody else? They're actually going to work with you? A lot of times what I've heard is that, they sign you up and you may end up getting pushed to somebody else on their team. Depends how dirty you want to get, but if you have real dirt, I've definitely done that against some Liberty agents. I'll be honest with you, Ron. You gotta roll your sleeves up.
Yeah, but I think it's good that you could see the spin of that too, because I feel like it is intimidating for a new agent, like your 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, even whatever the case is, to be like, ooh, I don't want to ask that question, because if I find out that it is, really, really big agents or whatever the case is, like if you're providing value, that excitement, everything there, it doesn't mean that you can't beat those other agents too. So just a way to spin it.
Even the big guys have flaws, right? Like there's nothing stopping you from going on the MLS and looking up that big person that you're going up against. And oh my gosh, wow, I noticed that they withdrew 100 properties last year. That's weird. Maybe you share that with the seller. I noticed they listed 200 homes, but 100 of them were withdrawn. Eesh, I wouldn't want them to withdraw your listing. I've only had 6 withdrawals or whatever. I don't know. Listen, I know these are recorded. I wouldn't share anything that was against the rules, but you have to figure out, you have to know who your competition is. You have to know who they're meeting with, and you have to, really point out what you do really well. And if there's something that you see that you do better than them, you can certainly point that out as well. And there's nothing against the rules there.
Yeah.
So,
and I think for all of these too, and this one too especially, you don't want to find out when you're on the appointment what you're dealing with. So that's just, again, the point of all of these is to figure out.
You can't look up the stats. I've had that happen. That's a really good point, where I meet with the person. I was stupid enough to not ask the question, or I asked the question and maybe they wouldn't share with me. I got there and they're like, we're also meeting with XYZ agent. And then what I do is I run back to my office and I'm like, I call them back and I'm like, hey, I saw that they withdrew all these properties. Like, I just wanted to share that with you. It just doesn't have the same delivery, right? You want to be prepared. You want to go into the meeting with everything printed and the stats and as to why they should hire you. All right, cool. So that's number 2, the other agents. Number 3, tell me again, Nikki, where are you moving to? Where did you say you were moving to?
We are moving to Florida. So I'm
awesome.
very excited about that.
I'm excited for you. What part of Florida?
Right outside Fort Lauderdale area.
Outside of Fort Lauderdale. Fantastic. Have you already identified the house you're going to be moving to?
Oh yeah, we bought that house last year, and we're just planning to move fully in there, going into the new year.
Got it. Okay, good. So it sounds like you don't need the proceeds from your sale in Hoboken in order to purchase that house, right? You already own it. Great.
Yeah, no.
Okay, cool. So we'll time out there.
Yeah.
You're not just asking them, tell me again, where are you moving to, just because you're being friendly, right? It is part of it. You want to build some rapport and have a nice conversation with them, and also bring it back to their motivation. If they try to do anything crazy or say, oh, we're going to wait 2 months before we hire you. Well, Nikki, you reminded me that you really wanted to move down to Fort Lauderdale, right? It's about to get cold here. Wouldn't you rather be in the warmer weather? You want to tie everything back. So it's important to remember where they're moving to. And in this business, a lot of times they need the money from the sale in Hudson County to buy in Florida, right? So it's a domino effect. So you can use that in, when you need to revisit their motivation if needed, right?
Yeah.
So if they're on the market for 60 days and they're not budging on their price, but they need this money to buy the house in Florida, you can certainly revisit that. So it's not only really important to ask these questions, but it's important to have the really good notes in your database, wherever you keep your notes, so that every week when you call your seller with updates about how you're making progress, you can go back to their motivation, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I'll say this too. Sometimes when you're pre-qualifying a seller, so let's say I'm going to meet Nikki tomorrow and I ask her tell me again where she's moving to. And she says, I'm not really sure yet. I'm like, all right, well, You know, you're about to sell a $750,000 condo. I don't understand, like, you know, what's
Yeah.
going on in my head is going, how the hell do you not know where you're going, right?
Mhm.
So you want to dig a little bit deeper. All right, well, I'm sure you've thought about it. Would you stay in Hudson County? Are you thinking you move out of the area? Would you move out of state? Looking to move to warmer weather? What are you thinking? Roll with me.
Oh, I was like, are we back in role play? Yeah, I don't know, John. We feel like we have a couple different options, so
Okay.
we're kind of still thinking about it.
Okay. Can I share something with you?
Yeah.
If we get your home on the market, let's just say in the next 5 or 10 days, right?
Hmm.
We're going to start getting action and activity right away. Most people are going to want to close within 45 to 60 days. So,
Wow.
Nikki, is it fair to say that if we brought you an offer, you know, a reasonable offer within, you know, close to your asking price, is it fair to say that you'd be able to find another place to move to by the middle of January?
Yeah, I mean, at the right price, yeah, we'd be able to do that.
Okay,
We'd
got it.
figure it
So
out.
there's not going to be any situation where like we bring you a great buyer and you say, oh, you know, I don't have anywhere to go, right? I've had that happen, Nikki, and it's just puts me in a tough situation.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely figure it out. So,
Awesome, awesome.
um,
Sometimes it happens quicker than you think, so we just need to make sure that we're on the same page.
definitely. Okay, that works.
Awesome, awesome. So yeah, it's good just to make sure that you're on the same page. Sometimes people are like, oh my God, I didn't think you'd actually get me that price.
Yeah.
I don't have anywhere to go. Or if some people throw some crazy stuff at you, like, well, I had a lady the other day, she's like, yeah, we'll move to either California or Maine. And I'm like, that
Yeah.
doesn't
That's
even,
what
you know?
yeah, I was gonna add that too of you sometimes because there's such a broad like again with the reaction of that answer, I guess the first example of the moving to Florida, like I could be, yep, we already have my house. I'm moving to Fort Lauderdale, the eastern side of Fort Lauderdale. We're so excited, like all the details that, if they're comfortable at that point with speaking with you, if they're sharing, just screams motivation versus like John was just saying, California main example. We've thought about this, we've thought about that. It's just a lack of motivation and you keep that in mind too.
Right. So, you know, the other thing I wanted to add too, I'm just keeping an eye on the clock here. How soon did you have to be there? So we'll call that question number 4. How soon did you have to be there? So you want to understand time frame, right? An ideal answer, right? A really, really motivated seller is going to say what?
Right
Nikki?
away.
Right away, right? Or I was supposed to be there a month ago, or
Yeah.
I need to be there in 2 weeks, or I'm already past my deadline. People with lower motivation might say what?
Maybe sometime by spring, summer next year.
Yeah, or they might say like, I'm just totally flexible. Doesn't matter. You
Flexible,
know,
yeah. That's
right.
actually the most
Flexible
broad.
is one of the worst responses.
Any buyer or seller.
Exactly. So you want to make sure that somebody has a tight timeline and a definitive place of where they're going to, right? These are
Yeah.
two important things. Time frame and a definitive place of where they're going to. Because the people who
Yeah.
are flexible, like even for when you're working with a buyer, right? Who's going to be more motivated? Somebody whose lease expired yesterday, or somebody who's like, I'm living in my parents' basement. As soon as I find my dream home that's right next to the path for $200,000, I'll jump on it. You're just like low motivation, right?
Yeah.
So the other thing we talked about, and I know Fernanda, you and I were talking about this the other day, is this script or these pre-qual scripts, whether it's a buyer or a seller, you're constantly going like this, up and down, right? You might be like, where are you moving to? And they're like, Maine or California? You're like, not a great answer. And you're like, how soon do you want to be there? And they're like, right away. I can do something right away. So you're a great answer. And then so you're sort of after all of these, let's say 10, 12 questions, you're going to make a determination of whether or not they fit your criteria, right? So it's important to dig as deep as you can.
Yeah.
All right, so number 5, let's go with this one. When I see you, how much did you want to list your home for? People will rattle off an answer there. Doesn't matter what they say, right? if you know your market pretty well, you're going to have an idea of if they're in the ballpark, right? I don't know about you, Ronald, but like we sell homes that are in Bergen County, Hudson County, Essex County, Passaic County. I don't know where I am half the time. I don't know every valuation in every area, but I sort of have a ballpark. I don't rely on Zillow or Zestimates or Redfin's valuations, but we certainly peek at them, right? So if I'm talking to somebody, I might have an idea that they're in the $500,000 range. If they say how much you want, if you say to them, how much you want to sell your home for, and they're spouting off numbers like 700, 750, that's where you have to sort of be like, okay, all right. But no matter what they say there, just let them say it. So you write down the price, and then we'll say, as a professional real estate agent, Nikki, I study homes and values every single day. Therefore, I assume you'll list the home with me at a price that will actually cause it to sell. Correct?
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
We don't want it to sit there.
Right. Of course. I wouldn't want it to sit there either, Nikki. We know that homes that sell for the most amount of money usually sell early on in the process. So tell me, what price won't you go below?
I mean, I'd love to list it at the 500, but I mean, I think we'd be willing to take something closer to 450 if that meant getting to Florida sooner.
So what I hear you saying is that your target price is 500, but if you're not able to achieve that price, or if you need a little bit of room for negotiation, which is common in this market, you'd be a little bit flexible on that price and could potentially go around 450.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, great. Well, as you know, we're incentivized to sell the home for as much money as possible, so we'll make sure that we get you as much as we possibly can. And Nikki, while I have you, so we'll keep that as number 5, right? So that's question 5 that you'd certainly want to ask every single seller.
Yeah.
How much do you want to list the home for? And what do a lot of people say when you ask them that question?
Well, John, you're the professional. What would you list it for?
Right. And sometimes they're a little sarcastic. They're like, I don't know. And that's okay. Like,
yeah,
it's not, so if you get that response a lot, that means you're asking the right questions. You're asking them, you're delivering them the right way. It's okay for somebody to respond that way. It's actually structured that way. Most people don't know, or they know and they don't want to show their cards, right? So, it's okay for you then, like, I don't want to go too far off the script, but it's okay for you to then say, well, Nikki, I have to look at the comparables as well. Of course, I know your neighborhood very well. I'm just curious though. I'm sure you saw that 123 Main Street sold for $490, and 456 Main Street sold for $510, and then I think there was another one around the corner that wasn't as renovated as yours that sold for $480. So, I mean, would you agree that we're in the ballpark of the high 400, low 5s?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. That's if you wouldn't give me an idea of like how much you wanted to sell your home for, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say too, with that, I feel like too, just of not asking it again, but rephrasing in a way, because again, they'll probably just be thrown off at first and then be able, like you're saying, they probably do know, if they're thinking about selling, everyone's on Zillow, whether it's a buyer or seller, they're going to be looking at stuff. They're going to have an idea in their head of what made them want to maybe sell. So just asking it again to get that response from them first, and doing it that way.
You're 100% right. It's if they're at the stage where they're talking to you, the realtor, they've definitely done some research. Don't let them fool you. They'll be like, oh no, I haven't looked at any numbers. It's like they're just testing you. I think honestly, some sellers confuse us with buyers, and like, oh, if I tell the realtor my number, I'll never get a higher number. It's like, no, I'm not the buyer. I'm not going to try to buy it from you for 300 when you're trying to get 500. You can tell me, right? So, but then again, you haven't developed any trust with them yet, so they're not going to show you their number, right?
Yeah.
So they've done the research, and you just sort of have to say, well, like I was saying, list some of the comparables, right? And if you're doing this on the fly because you're prospecting through Mojo or Vulcan or one of these dialers, like you could easily look at the Zillow page. Again, I'm not suggesting that Zestimates are accurate, but you can look at recent sales in the bottom of Zillow and be like, well, I'm sure you saw the one that was up the street sold for $395 or $495, let's say $490, and then there was a $510. So you're in the ballpark of, high 4s, low 5s, right? I I mean, just me saying high fours, low fives is like a $60,000 swing. So
Yeah.
you're safe, because if you go out there and the house is in immaculate condition, you could be low fives. If you go out there and it's the worst house you've ever been in, you could always readjust as well. So
Yeah.
it's important to make sure that you're in the same ballpark, because there have been many times where I've skipped that question for whatever reason. I was driving, I didn't have my notes in front of me. I didn't ask them how much they were thinking. I go out there with my folder and my comps and I'm all prepared. And then I go and sit at their counter and I'm like, so how much did you think you wanted to sell the house there for? And they're like, not $1 less than 750. And you're like, wow, we are very far off.
Yeah.
Why am I here? Why am I here? Right? Like I could have been at dinner with my friends. I canceled that. I put on a suit. I came out here and we're $250,000 apart. So again, don't disqualify, but you want to make sure that you're speaking the same language with these people.
Yeah.
All right. So that was number 5. I'm going to sneak another one in here that's I think is important. Nikki, let me ask you, what's your plan B if you're not able to sell the property for the price you were talking about, for the price that we discussed, let's say $500,000, right? What's your plan B? Would you consider maybe renting it? Do you need the proceeds to purchase something else? Of course, you wouldn't ask that if she already told you that she
Yeah.
doesn't need them to purchase Florida. What's the backup plan if you don't sell it?
I mean, John, there really is no backup plan. I don't want to be a landlord. I want to get the property sold. So that's
Great.
the goal.
Great. So you've
That's
come to the right
motivated.
person. I'll make
Yeah.
sure I can sell it for you, and we'll make sure that it's for a fair price, right?
Yeah.
So that's great. That's a really good answer, right? That's something I'm super excited about. She's not considered renting it no matter what, right?
Yeah.
Because what I've had happen is I've go on the appointment, I think they're super qualified, and then all of a sudden, like they're like, well, if I can't get 5, I'll just rent it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, no, we talked about this already. You said you didn't want to be a landlord. So you need to try to get that information out of them before you go on the appointment. Well,
Mhm.
would you consider, and then some people will tell you, yeah, on the prequal, hey, if I don't get my price, I will rent it, right? Okay, so you're okay being a landlord, you're okay, babysitting tenants, and then you could sort of craft how you want to proceed from there. Like if somebody says they're moving from North Bergen to Union City, they might be okay being a landlord. But if somebody
Yeah.
said they're moving from Hoboken to Fort Lauderdale, they may not want to be a landlord for something where they're so far away.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever been a
Exactly.
landlord for a property where you're, however many miles away?
Yeah.
Right. So it is important to figure out what is their backup plan, because some people will try to tell you, oh, well, if I can't get my price, I'm going to try to do something else. They might
Mhm.
say refinance. They might say something else. So important. This is where the Mike Ferry script tells you to ask how much they owe on the property. I think it is an important question. It's not one that we really need to spend a whole lot of time on, but I would ask that question: how much do you owe on the property? Ballpark, right? You're trying to
Yeah.
find out the ballpark. Some people are super analytical and they're like, I can't remember if it's 98,000 or 97,000. Let me go find out. I just need a rough idea. What you're trying to figure out here is, can they actually afford to sell it? Some
Mhm.
people might have paid, like if you work with somebody like on a lot of those buildings on River Road, Ronald, like 8,100, 7,800, all those buildings on River Road, those poor people, a lot of them paid $700,000 for a condo in 2008 that's now worth 5. So, hey, are we talking about your place being worth 5 and you actually owe 550, right? You want to make sure that they can actually afford to pay you, right?
Mhm.
And not just pay you, but actually afford to sell for the price that it's worth. So that is an important question. Some people will tell you, I don't know why they'll ask you why is that important? It's none of your business. I'm
Yeah.
not sharing that information. And you can easily just say, you know what, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, and I appreciate where you're coming from. My goal is to share with you a net sheet, and I'll share all the numbers with you at our appointment, so you can see exactly how much you'll put in your pocket after everything is said and done. Do you agree that number would be helpful for you to see? Perfect. Okay, so how much do you owe approximately? 90,000. Great. So now you know that they owe 90,000. They want to sell it for 500. Your commission comes out. They're going to have more than enough room to actually pay you and do what they want to do.
Mhm.
So definitely don't skip that question. Number 7, question 7 that we have on the list is, have you thought about selling it yourself? So this is always an interesting one. People are like, why would you ever mention to them that they could potentially sell it for sale by owner, isn't that like telling them that they don't need us?
Mhm.
They already know, they already have an idea that they could do this themselves. If they're speaking with you, what they've said, what they're essentially saying to you is, I think you would do a better job, or yeah, I want to sell it myself, but I don't have enough time, or I think you would get me more money. So it's okay to put this thought into their head. You want to know what you're up against, right? There have been plenty of times where I haven't asked this question. I go out there, I give them all of my facts and my research, I give them my numbers, I give them my comparables, and then they list it for sale by owner at the exact price that I told them to do, right? So they stole my due diligence, right? So it's just good. Can you totally prevent that? No, but you could just say, hey, have you ever thought about selling it yourself? Some people will say things like, absolutely not, way too busy. I'm a doctor, my wife's a doctor, we're both doctors, we're never home. That's why we're hiring you, right? Other people will say, we are also considering it. What are you going to do that I can't do? And then now you're prepared for those objections.
Yeah.
That's like one of the most important reasons you're going to do this pre-qual, right? So
Mhm.
that when you're in the car driving over there, I already know they're interviewing that other big agent from Liberty, right? Who sells a lot more homes than me. So I need to be prepared to tell them why, with my value proposition, why I'm a better agent. I need to be prepared to answer the for sale by owner objections, right? Because they're going to say, hey, why am I going to pay you 6% when all I need to do is pay a buyer's agent 2%? I could sell it myself. What are you going to do different, right? So, talk to us, go on YouTube, do some soul searching and figure out why you're a better agent. But you need to have that elevator pitch, your Shark Tank approach, or your pitch, whatever it is. You need to have that really available, right? If you haven't noticed yet, you're helping yourself be more prepared for the actual presentation.
Yep.
Right? So that when you go there, you're not just going off the cuff. You're actually scripted and prepared. Cool. So that was number 7. I'm just looking at the clock here. We got about 12 minutes, and I do want to just leave some time for questions. So let's jump to, I'll call this one number 8. Please describe the home for me. So this is a fun one. We could just act out a little bit. So Nikki, if I ask you to describe the home and we're role playing.
Yep.
One of the reasons that I'm asking you to do this is so that I can determine what your personality style is.
Yeah.
Right? So if I think that, and if you guys that are new to this, there's 4 main personality styles, right? There's a driver that just is really in charge. They take direction. They want things short and sweet. There's amiable, which is Nikki, someone who's very, she avoids confrontation. She's very go with the flow. She wants the best for everybody, right?
Mhm.
You rarely will see her like publicly arguing with somebody.
Rarely.
Rarely. Unless she's had a few drinks. 3rd is the analytical. This is a numbers person.
Mhm.
This is me.
John.
Someone who's like, I need to see all the numbers before I make any decision, even if it's over $3, right? Like,
Yep.
I need to calculate everything and determine the outcome before I can make a decision and determine where we're going to eat dinner. Like, overanalyze everything, right? The numbers person. And then the 4th one is the expressive. This is the loudest person in the room. They're the life of the party. They're super excited. Everything should revolve around them. They usually have like bright hair and bright glasses, and they're sometimes artists and all that fun stuff. So 4 main personality styles. And when you ask this question, you can determine what their personality style is.
Yeah.
So Nikki, we'll go on the fly. If you're a driver and I'm like, hey, please describe your home for me, how would a driver respond?
4 beds, 2 baths, colonial.
Yep. You'll see it tomorrow, right?
You'll see it tomorrow when you come here.
Super direct. All right. Like, why are you asking me these questions? 4 beds, 2 baths. You're going to see it tomorrow, John. Like, what else you got to ask? Yep. All right. So Nikki, please describe your home for me, and let's pretend you're an analytical.
So John, on the 1st floor, there's a large living room. I'd say it's probably, 10 feet wide. It's great size. Kitchen. We've got, 3 beds, 2 baths, 2 full baths on the 2nd floor. An attic space that's finished, just, super detailed with everything.
Yep. Right. So super detailed, specific, square footage, approximate size of
Yep.
every appliance and room and all that stuff.
year of everything, every
Yeah,
mechanical, everything
what
like
year
that.
you replaced it? I have very good notes. The stove was replaced in 1986, and it's 36 inches wide. Yeah. The expressive. Please describe your home for me, and let's pretend you're an
That's it.
expressive.
So John, my house is the party house of the whole block. I mean, I have this amazing bright blue color throughout the house. It's amazing. You're going to be so excited when you see it. It's great. I picked it out obviously too. Just, super a lot.
I have the best house on the street. Everybody loves
Yeah.
coming over here. Wait till you walk in, you're like, oh my God, these paint colors are out of control.
Giving me
Yellow
a
and red.
migraine.
Yes. And then last but not least is, what did we say?
Amiable.
All right.
Yes.
So, Nikki, please describe your home for me.
Well, John, my home is a 3-bed, 2-bath. It's, my kids grew up there. It's super important to me. It's just filled with love. Something like that.
We want to make sure our house is sold to somebody who's going to appreciate it
Yeah.
just as much as we did.
Yeah.
They're really
Mhm.
family focused. So again, we're trying to make a funny spin on this, but it's
Mhm.
that question. Of course, you want to hear stainless steel appliances, hardwood floors,
Yeah.
central air conditioning, finished basement. You're listening for those things so that when you run the comparables, the
Mhm.
condition of the house. But the
Yeah.
reason you asked that is a twofold question. You want to also determine what their personality style is,
Yeah.
right? Super, super important. I just
Yeah.
realized I think I'm going to do a reel on this. I think so.
Yeah. That's a good reel. Well, yeah,
It's
because and the personality, finding out the personality style in that question specifically will then allow you to tailor your questions and your presentation when you go. So, we stick to a script that we follow, and, it's important for us to get through that script when we're there, but also know the type of person that we're dealing with. A driver is going to be very short to the point. That analytical is going to want to spend a little bit more time on the comparables, and they're probably going to ask you a lot of questions on the comparables. So can't just go there and not look at them. And amiable, the questions are going to be family focused, other people, how they feel, and all that. And expressive, kind of making the focus about them. So other than just, again, like he's saying, just tailoring that general presentation you have to fit their needs, because they're just gonna get bored and whatever personality style it is, and maybe just
yeah,
lose focus too.
yeah. When it's a driver, that you're probably going to be in and out of there in 25 minutes. It's almost like
Yeah.
sitting at the table. It's like, all right, here, I'm going to give you the facts. So I think you should sell your house for this much. I think the comparables are around this amount. This is that. I know your time's valuable. I know you probably have to go back to work. I know you probably don't want me in your house for too long. So this is this, this is this, this is this, this is this. Just sign here. I can make it seamless and effortless
Yeah.
for you. Boom, boom, boom. Right. Whereas the analytical, you might bring a briefcase and have every comp that has ever sold in their neighborhood ever, because they're going to want to measure it compared to their house. So
Yeah.
super, super, it helps you prepare. So I want to make sure we get these last two questions in. I'm noticing the time.
Yeah.
Condition. Nikki, is there anything either positive or negative about the home that you think may impact the price?
Yeah, I mean, John, I think the roof is definitely probably towards the end of its life. It's good, but it's probably about 20 years old. So maybe a little older. So that's just one thing we feel like maybe brought up, but other than that,
Okay.
it's good.
All right. So on a scale of 1 to 10, Nikki, with 10 being the most beautiful house you've ever seen, how would you rate this house, your house?
I mean, I would rate it an 8. We just painted and cleaned. I mean, there's more decluttering I need to do, and it's not as updated as some of the other houses, but I think an 8.
All right, good. So an 8 out of 10. Okay.
Yeah.
And aside from the roof, what do you think would make it a 10 or an 11? Anything else you think you
Uh,
need to do around the house, or you think maybe the next buyer would want to do?
They'd probably want to update the kitchen. It's a little outdated.
Okay, got it. All right, good. So obviously I'm going to see it in person tomorrow. I can give you my feedback, but this is super helpful as I prepare for our appointment. So Ronald, this question is huge, man. Hopefully we haven't put you to sleep here.
No.
This this question, dude, this one, I wish I knew this one years ago. Now I'm going there. We talked about this. I'm going to propose a price. Let's just say my comparables show around 5. I'm pushing for 5. Let's pretend Nikki says, no, I want 515. I want 520. Do you think we can do a
Mhm.
little bit better? What do I know that she knows? She's already admitted to me about the house, the weaknesses or the deficiencies. The roof,
The roof,
right? The roof. You said
outdated
somebody
kitchen.
might want to update the kitchen, right?
Mhm.
You've told me all the things that would make it a 10 or 11. A 10 or 11 is 520, right? An 8 is 500,000, right? So as soon as she tells me, you know what, I really want 515, 520, I say, Nikki, you know what? I would love to get you 515 or 522. I'd also love to be 21 years old again, right? But I can't do that, right? Can I give you some professional advice?
Yes.
Based on the fact that you do need a new roof or you may be at the end of its useful life, and based on the fact that you've admitted to me that, you know, a lot of people would probably want to come in and update the kitchen, and I do feel the same, you're much better off listing your home at around 499,000, right?
Mhm.
Would you
Yeah.
agree? All right, great.
Yeah.
So that question, it's a little bit sneaky because a lot of people do
Yeah.
admit to you the deficiencies of the property. And a lot of times the deficiencies that are there that are obvious are the reason that they can't get the price they want. So
Mhm.
you're going to be able to, it's a little bit of like an attorney question. It allows you to take some information and bring it back to them,
Yeah.
right? Most rarely do people say, some of these idiots, pardon my language, some of these people are like, you know, no, it's my house is an 11, and you get there and you're like, ooh, I don't even want to sit on that chair because it's in such bad condition. But
Yeah.
most times people are pretty honest. All right, and then I wanted to just close it out with one more question. So Nikki, when I come out tomorrow at 4, will all of the decision makers be present?
Yes, it's going to be me and my partner. We'll be there.
You and your partner, okay. And then I'm looking at the tax records, Nikki. It says Stephen. That's your partner?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so it's you and Steven tomorrow. Anybody else involved in like the finances or any accountant or family members or anything else like involved in this decision?
No, it's just the two of us.
Just the two of you. Okay, great. Well, listen, I'm excited to meet you both tomorrow. Do you have any questions before I come out?
No, I think we're good.
Great. So just so you know, our meeting should take about 30 minutes. I'll be there right at 4 p.m. See you then.
Great. Looking forward to it.
All right, awesome. So the decision makers is really important. Are there, like, this is a huge one. Like, I've had it. They'll lie to you. They'll tell you they're going to be there. If the plans change, I would really honestly consider planning on changing or rescheduling the appointment. You know, if all of a sudden Steven or the partner can't make it, well, if we were able to move it from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, would that give Steven enough time to be able to join us? Oh no, he's not available at all tomorrow. All right, well, what if we were able to move the appointment to Thursday at 6? Could you and Steven be there? Great. All right, let's then move it to 6, because you don't want to do this presentation twice. You don't
Mhm.
want to give them a way out where you're sitting there giving them all of this knowledge and they're like, yeah, I'll just tell Steven what's going on. You're essentially telling them that, like, Steven's opinion doesn't really matter, even if they tell you. And a lot of people will do this. Oh no, my
Yeah.
wife trusts me to make the decision. My husband trusts me to make the decision. Get in front of both of them. And then I
Yeah.
also threw in there, is there any other financial decision makers, like accountants or family members? Because I've had situations where I'm talking to a couple about selling their house, and it turns out dad had lent them the money to buy the house, so he wants to be involved in whether or not they're going to sell it for a certain price.
Mhm.
Or some people will say to me, you know what, John, you did a great job. I appreciate the presentation. We're pretty much in line with the numbers you gave us, but we need to talk to our accountant before. And you're like, oh, they won't sign tonight. Like, you want to get that signed. Like Steve Powers, my old
Yeah.
coach, told me, you never have any better opportunity than when you're sitting across from them at the kitchen table. Don't let them off the hook. I mean, that we'll have a whole nother webinar about closing 5 times, but don't
Yeah.
let them off the hook. Keep their attention. You know, try to get the agreement signed that night. And again, these are those 10 questions that will put you in a better position so that you don't get there and find out, nope, we have to run the number by dad or the accountant, or I actually do have a partner. Always compare it to the tax records. Don't you get yourself into a situation where you say, you know, just assume that a female has a male partner or that a male has a female partner. Partner can be a lot of things these days. So Don't just assume, will your wife be there or will your husband be there? I've made that mistake and been wildly corrected. So hopefully this was informative for everybody. Ronald, any questions that we can close this out with? Don't be shy.
No question. Everything's very helpful. That did happen to me about the decision maker when I went to a presentation, and
Yep.
then they ended up going for sell by owner, and then ended up selling it themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The thing I'll tell you about the for sale by owners, man, is that one good thing to remember with them is, yes, like you turn the tables on them. You can sell it yourself. There's no doubt in my mind. They're never expecting you to say that. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you can sell it yourself. My fear is that you may be selling it for less money than what I would sell it for, even after the commission, right? Like I know you can sell it, but the question is, are you selling it for as much, if not more, as I am? And can you net the same amount that I could net you? So yeah, the decision maker one, man, it's important. And some of these people are smart. They're like, no, I'll meet with you because my husband's busy and he's at work, and I'll just relay the information. Or they're strategically like, you know what? I don't have to be, I can't sign if he's not there. So I'm taking the pressure off myself if I strategically make sure I do it at a time when he's not there. I've had people who I'm like, no, you can sign this, and then I'll send it to your husband electronically. And they're like, no, can't do that. So, you know, really, really push. But again, if you're newer, you're a year in the business, you don't have 25 appointments on your calendar, you have to make a business decision for yourself. Should I still go on that appointment knowing I may have to go back a second time? Should I still go on that appointment knowing it could just be practice? It could just be too early in the process. I would say practice like hell with these people that may not necessarily be so serious, because if you find somebody who is sitting there in an empty apartment that has to move to Florida by November 30th, you don't want to practice on those people. So hopefully this was helpful. You know, we want to do more of these collaboration webinars where we're, you know, some people would find it strange for us to share our secrets and what's working really well for our team with other agents that are in the market. But, you know, you and I don't cross paths that much. I'm not going on as many appointments as I used to. And even then, like, I remember we were talking about this at our in-person event with Tariq. Like, Tariq Hasib in your office in Liberty, like I used to prospect with him every day for 4 hours. And like, I think one time in 3 years did we ever say, oh, dude, are you talking to that guy on like First Street or something? Yeah, I talked to him. He's a maniac. But other than that, like we never really I never even really was like paying such close attention that I knew where he was setting up appointments. So anyway, I find it great that we can all collaborate together, because if we can help agents improve within our market, then the next time we do a transaction with you guys, we're all speaking the same language, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Cool. All right, man. Well, tell Matt we said hello, and have a great night. I know it's looking like it's almost nighttime already, but only 4 o'clock. Have a good night. Don't hesitate to reach out. We're always happy to share ideas and collaborate, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, John.
All right.
Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Take care, buddy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.